Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Unseen Scientist podcast. We're back finally after a bit of a hiatus, but I'm really excited for this episode. We're going to be talking about the experiences of international PhD students. And this is a really important subject to talk about because so many of us in PhDs, they come from overseas. And I would say maybe 30 or 40% of the lab community comes from another country. So this is a bit of a good resource for anybody who is thinking of studying abroad down the line, but for also PIs and leaders in the space, if you want to have an insight or perspective of PhD students who come from an international background, maybe this might help you to create a more safe and encouraging environment for those students as well. So to help me with this podcast, I've got two amazing guests today. We've got Sam and Riaz. Hi, Sam and Riaz.
Hi,
Everyone,
Jeessie.
hi.
Hi, Jeessie.
Thank you so much for coming on. I had to kind of plead with them to be on this podcast, so thank you. Thank you so much.
I play it.
And so Sam is, kind of finishing off her PhD now, as she's just submitted. And for Sam and I, we were in the same institute for a while, so that's how we got to know each other. So Sam, could you please give us a bit of a brief introduction to yourself, like where you come from, where you did your PhD, and what are you up to now?
Well, firstly, thanks, Jeessie, for having me on this podcast. It's really exciting. This is the first time I've done something like this, so all very new.
Yay!
A bit more about myself. I come from India, specifically from the eastern side of India. I did my bachelor's and master's back home in India at the Indian Institute of Science. And then I shifted to the University of Melbourne for my PhD. With respect to a project, I worked with bacterial genomics and pathogenesis, and especially working with clinical salmonella isolates, trying to understand why some groups of salmonella might have a higher chance of going into the blood instead of the gut. So that was, in a very layman terms, nutshell of my project.
It's perfect for me.
But yeah, and right now pretty much at the tail end of my PhD, and lovely to have a chat about it in this
Yay!
podcast.
Yay, thank you so much, Sam. Now we move on to Riaz. Hi, Riaz. Same thing for you.
Hi,
Please give a bit of
Jeessie.
an introduction.
Yeah. Hi, Jeessie. Yeah. It's a really pleasure to be here. Yeah. And same for me. It's kind of my first experience to be on some podcast. Maybe because I'm kind of a shy guy. That is
No.
very hard. Yeah. So for the background, so I came from Pakistan. And same like my bachelor and master's from Pakistan. And then I moved to China for my PhD. So Chinese government provided me a scholarship, and I did my PhD in China for like 5 years. And then I did a postdoc there with the same supervisor. And then after that, I moved to Canada, and I did a postdoc there for like 5 years. And then I moved back to China. And here I'm now working as a scientist.
Yes, and in industry, right? You've
Yeah,
gone to
in
the
an
dark
industry.
side
Yeah.
like I have.
Yeah.
But yeah, I forgot to mention that Riaz and I met at a conference in 2023. So anyone from RNA Society,
RNA
we met
Society,
there.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Shout out to
Exactly.
RNA Society. Yeah, we met in Singapore, and yeah, we still keep in touch, which is amazing. So
Yeah.
thank you both for joining. So let's get right into it. Okay. So for me, I come from New Zealand and I had headed over to Australia, right? And the cultural differences aren't that much, right? So that's why I wanted to bring you on. But I have worked at 4 different institutions, worked or studied. And what I've gathered is that maybe 80% of the people there stay on to do their PhDs in the same institute. Do you feel that too? So it's kind of like you do the bachelor's, you do the master's, and you do the PhD in the same institute. And I thought about why that really was, because it was not just one institute, it was all the 4 institutes that I've been in. It kind of happened the same way. And one thing I realized was people really care about family, right? So they might want to keep in touch with the extended family. They're in the same city. They might have friends a community that they already have that don't want to leave them. And it's also about comfort, right? You're used to the situation, you're used to the environment. And for me, comfort is great, but I'm kind of the type of person that likes a bit of a challenge in a different way. Like, I want a different environment. And I think being uncomfortable makes you grow into a better human being. That's just me. It doesn't have to be for everybody.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, why did you go to another country for your PhDs after your master's? Anyone want to start?
Riaz, you want to have a go first? Yeah, I can take it.
You go ahead, Sam. You go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll follow you.
sure. So basically, I think it starts from my bachelor's and master's because after my schooling, I actually shifted to another city in India, which was a residential university. So what happens in there is there are hostels inside the campus. It was a research institution, and we were sort of the fourth batch of undergraduate students. So it was a very new system that was going around, just 100 students from a large country such as India. So very selective in getting in there as well. And our classes was taken by professors, which is quite a similar system here in Australia and the US as well. So, but with respect to India, that's quite different because it's very much a collegiate system. A lot of colleges, they do not offer like research labs. It's mostly teaching based, whereas a certain sector of universities do offer like the research and teaching part. So my institute was one of those. So yes, it was also a bit challenging because a lot of professors, they had already dealt with like either master students or PhD students. So sometimes the challenge was to like get up to the master students level, even in our undergrad, because the standard wouldn't be down. You have to match up with their level of expertise. And especially in like after deciding our majors as well, our courses will be common with PhD students and masters, and we had to compete together. So that was definitely quite challenging, but
Yeah, I can imagine.
a great experience for us because often we ended up getting like higher scores. Maybe it was the research stress from the other students as well, while we were just focusing on the courses. But definitely, once you have that urge to do better and like keep it as a challenge, you work very hard for it. And so the other thing was because it was a residential hostel, there were students coming in from all across the country, right? So you are already getting into a melting pot with different cultures, different languages, and things like that. I feel like that was one of the best times of my youth, to be fair. Both my parents had actually lived in such residential colleges. And when I was leaving home for the first time, they said, "You're going to have the best 4 years of your life." And it was definitely true. Even now, I am in touch with some of my friends who are like all over the world. So, yeah, what that did help me is open up, like be more open about new cultures or even within the same cultures, new languages coming from different regions, making friends who do not speak the same dialect as me or the language as me. Because in India, each state has its own language. And so at the end, we end up conversing in English or some other like Hindi or something, which is very common. I think that played a part in how we ended up deciding. So most of us actually, after our undergrad or masters, shifted to other countries. A lot of them went to the States. I was finishing up my master's, so I applied a bit on delay. We'll come to that on how we ended up here. I think that was the reasoning is to like challenge myself, get to a new country, get more exposure in another country, and that definitely played a role in why I chose away from home country to do my PhD.
So it was already a melting pot within the institution that you were in, because it was also a highly competitive
Yes.
environment as well. So a lot of people want to come to that institute from different regions. But I was wondering, because you did say that a lot of you did end up going overseas. So your seniors, maybe, did they tell you that they were going to go overseas, which is why you had that idea of going as well? Like, it made you even more open to the idea of going? You knew people were thinking of going overseas?
I think definitely, because during our final year of undergrad, we were doing our thesis projects, very similar to the honors system here.
Mhm.
And at that time, we would be interacting with the PhD students who are finishing up and going for postdocs.
Right, right.
And we got to know about how the application process is for PhDs abroad. So definitely we would interact, uh, again, residential. So everybody from different batches would come together during meal something,
Mm-hmm.
and we would have a chat. A lot of them would go like for internships during their undergrad abroad and tell us about like the different experiences that they had and things like that. So I think definitely that piqued our interest a lot in what we could achieve more if we step out of the comfort zone.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Riaz?
Yeah. So for me, uh, I will start like a bit earlier. That I would say that I never knew about the research actually. So basically, maybe in India it's quite a bit different, but probably is the same like generally that we have like two careers that if we want to do to be a doctor or want to be engineer, yeah, that's same for me. Like my parents, they wanted me to be a doctor. Yeah. So my aim was like to be just go to the medical college. Yeah. So I was just
Mm.
preparing for all the exams for like from high schooling to the college. I was preparing for that one. But like when actually I failed in it in that. And some colleagues they told me, I mean my fellows, they told me, okay, you need to do it again. So just don't give up.
Mm.
Then like somehow like one of my friend he showed me that why not you go to the research side, and it's a microbiology. There is a new department in the Punjab University in the university, so why don't you try that one? I wasn't sure. I said, okay, maybe, but anyhow, like I got there. And I think now, like I'm thinking that about that if I could have repeated and went to the medical college or not. But I think that was my best decision that I didn't go to the medical field.
Yeah.
So because when I moved to I did my undergrad in microbiology, and so that was kind of many people they were doing research. There were research labs. So from there, I got like very much interested in that how people. I mean, there are so many things we can do, and there is a whole field that you can go get into and you can explore. So the same way then I did my bachelor. I finished my bachelor, and the same like I mean, there were many seniors. They were going abroad for the scholarships and for the exchange programs. From
Mm-hmm.
that point, like I said, okay, maybe the resources are here are less, so that's why they are moving abroad. So that is a trigger point for me. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, okay, I will. So again, like it's a human intent that you want to be best and best, and you want to move to the best place. So then I moved to further my master's degree. So there was another institute that was totally based on research. They didn't have any, I mean, masters or bachelor students. That was only the lab, and you do your PhD there. So I went, so I got admitted there. So in that time again, like that research institute was the best. I mean, in the university in terms of
Mm.
within the university. So I thought, okay, I can do something like really good for my career. But again, so when you I went to the institute, I was doing my research and research thesis again. So I feel that the resources are not enough. So I wanted to do more
Mm.
because when you are reading
Mm-hmm.
the literature and you see so many experiments you are doing, and when you want to perform there but you couldn't, again it triggered me, okay, I need to go abroad now. Yeah, then I moved, I switched to the because I enrolled in PhD program, but then again I switched to the master's program. So I told them I just want to do master's degree, and that's how I started to look for a PhD abroad. So I was like looking for a PhD in US, but that didn't work. But then again, I mean, some friend told me that just apply to China. And
Mm.
it was not in my mind that I was going to apply. It was only that
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to US or England or in Europe somewhere. Yeah, but again, so that's where life takes you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So my friend, he suggested me some universities in China. So I applied there and I got scholarship there.
Wow. So I guess it was a series of events that happened that were
Exactly.
sort of
It was a
unexpected,
serious, yeah, yes.
and it led to where you are. But, no regrets, right? I feel like
Yeah,
everything
exactly.
happened because they needed to happen.
Yes, exactly.
But I totally feel you when you said resources, because I feel like with science, it costs a lot of money.
Yes,
And coming from the other side of industry where I'm distributing products to researchers, I'm like, wow, everything costs quite a lot to do one experiment. Every enzyme costs this much
exactly.
and every plasmid costs this much. And it adds up. And there's such a lack of funding in certain countries. I feel that way in New Zealand, where we have a very small budget for blue skies research. But I think the reason why so many of us want to go to the US is because there's so much abundance in
Exactly.
terms of fundamental science that you can do there, because there are billionaires that can give philanthropic money to do whatever you want, like even just a small idea that can grow, 10x, 100x. They will
Exactly.
be willing to put that bet on you, make that bet on you. So I totally get it. And so let's talk about, yeah.
I just give you an idea that in my master's degree, I only did PCR. I only
Oh,
did PCR.
what? Wow. So like traditional PCR, so no qPCR,
Yes,
just PCR.
traditional PCR.
Wow. So you were looking at like different genes in the
Yes.
microbiome, or particular.
Yeah, so I was working on human genetics. So the project
Ah,
was like that. I need to screen the mutations
uh-huh.
in the deafness patients. Yeah. So in the deafness families. Yeah.
Mm.
So I was
Wow.
extracting the DNA from blood and then doing the PCR. Yeah.
Right. So you had a whole pedigree of like a
Oh,
family,
yes,
and you got
exactly.
samples. That's always a really cool project. I think I had a similar one with frontotemporal dementia family for my
Uh-huh.
third year project. So we got like plasma samples from all these donors, and I found that like really cool to have a family that you are going to research, right? And
Yes,
it's
yes. That
really,
was
yeah.
that was good basis. So I wanted to do something more like, okay, so we got the mutations. Now
Yeah.
what we can do more.
Yeah. Yes.
That at that point, then we start like that we don't have resources. But in my lab, like I mean, the other people, so they were going abroad for the exchange students, and they were doing
Mm-mm-mm.
some extra experiments there. So but
Mm.
for me, like I wanted to do whole PhD somehow. Like I don't have to go to abroad for
Yeah.
small experiments or other
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, true. Totally understand. So then you got your scholarships. Now
Yes.
you're ready to go, and you're preparing to move, right, to this new country. And I'm assuming that, I know, Sam, had you been to Australia before you
No.
moved there? Okay,
No.
and same with you, Riaz, you've never been to China.
I
You
know.
had never been.
No.
Okay, so then you have this idea of an image of this place in your mind before you go, right? So what was that like? What were you imagining, sorry.
Um, to be fair, I think like most of my friends actually shifted to the US, but
Yes.
they shifted sort of right after bachelor's, so did not stay back for masters.
Oh, okay.
Whereas I stayed back for my master's
Mm.
back home
Mm-hmm.
because they were also offering like a 1 year master's, so it was a 4+1.
Right.
I was like, if I just spend 1 year doing a new project, I could get a new degree, and that
Mm.
turned out to be pretty well because not only did I get to like design my own thing as a master student, there were publications that came out of that project, my own, and even
Mm.
helping out some of the senior PhD students. So
Mm.
that was a really good experience for me. And then when I started applying, it was late 2020, and we know what happened to the world back then. So the first thing that I did check was I did not choose the states, given that in the states you have to do coursework as part
Mm.
of your PhD.
Mm-hmm.
Because I already did so much of coursework for my masters, I wanted to like just focus on a shorter PhD, which was like 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I think, as Ria said, like the first thing you go to is like Europe or UK, check out some of the universities. But getting a scholarship was difficult in that time
Mm.
because there was a lot of funding being redirected to like virology research. I wanted to do bacteriology. And then one of the research assistants from my master's lab, she was in University of Queensland. Sure. So we got
Mm.
talking like, how is the research landscape in Australia? How are you finding it? And then through her, I decided to talk to people at the Peter Doherty Institute of what are provisions in there. And that's how I got to know like about the scholarships and how to apply for this PhD. And luckily, I was able to get my application accepted. Definitely, but again, we did not know much people in Australia. I did not even know who was here, so it was completely new. All we have heard of is like kangaroos and koalas.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So yeah, and cricket, of course, because yeah, Indians are big on cricket.
Very
I think
important.
so yeah, it's like, oh, it's Melbourne, it's the MCG is there, like we have to see that and all of that.
Mhm.
So it was all very exciting. I think went down the rabbit hole of what floats around in here and everything. Like how is it there? So I don't think I think the biggest thing was to get the PhD started after the pandemic because there was a lot of border closures as well, which ended up in me delaying the start of my degree. So a lot of uncertainties back then. Mentally, I would say I prepared like, as in I knew that the culture was going to be different.
Mm.
And the only thing I had no control of is I don't know how much is it going to be different. So that's not something that you know before you come to a new country. So the only thing I said was, okay, let's keep an open mind, see what's going to come of it. The first step is done. You're
Mm.
moving to a new country. It's all very exciting. We'll see how it's going to go. And that's sort of the mindset that I had is I wouldn't be closed off within myself. I'm going to go and put myself out there and try to communicate with people is um, my mindset that I had when I came here. So that's the preparation. And then, of course, things like your PhD journey begins and a lot of things happen. So there's that. But yeah, with respect to preparation, that was it for me.
And it's hard to know because
Yeah.
we watch a lot of American TV, right?
Mhm.
Because it's everywhere.
Yeah.
But then Australian TV is kind of hard to come across internationally. So you don't know how people kind of interact with, others. But then Riaz, you're going to China. So China
Yeah.
is completely different and also another language. You have to learn a language that you haven't spoken maybe at all before. So how was that preparation?
Yeah. So to be frankly, like it's been a long time now that I don't have like specific memories, but generally, so what I remember is that when I exchanged emails with my PI, so I mean, while I was applying for a scholarship, so he mentioned me one thing that can you do like a long hours work in the lab? And
Wow. That was one of the first things that he asked in the email.
exactly, exactly. And actually, I was like already working in my lab in Pakistan for like a long time because
Yeah.
at the same time I was working as a part-time job. And so I said straightforwardly, I said, okay, I'm already used to it, so no worry.
No problem.
So yeah, no problem. Yeah, no problem. Then like I didn't know I mean exactly that how China looks because in my mind I never we only heard the name China, but the life because in the TV and other things we don't see much about the Chinese,
Yeah.
culture and life and other things. I mean, at that time, social media was also not very, open. That's the time of 2012, 13. Actually, yeah. So in I was blank that how it will be. Okay. But the only thing I knew that I'm going to the lab and going to do PhD and I'm going to work hard.
Long
Because my
hours. But did you kind of get a shock when they said that? Like when in the email, it's such a shock because you normally only find out once you get there, like, okay, now everyone else is working hard, so I should work hard, that kind of thing. But to say it,
I think that was probably a condition for my PI to see that if I am willing to spend a long time in the lab or not. So if I say no, I wouldn't, then
you wouldn't get it.
maybe, yeah, I wouldn't get
Wow.
it. Yeah, exactly.
That's so crazy. So then you formulated this idea. Maybe you there's some gaps in your knowledge about what's going to happen in Australia and China. So you arrive, right? So you're arriving alone, I'm assuming, or were you with your wife then, Riaz, as well, in China?
No. So for me, Yeah. So I mean, at that time, the friend who suggested me that I should apply to China, so he was with me. He already got the
Oh.
actually he already got the like reference letter. He already got the admission there in the same university.
Mm.
So that's and he was working in my lab. So he was from
Oh.
different university in Pakistan, but he was working in my lab. I mean, in masters. Yeah. So
Oh.
we were together. So we together board the train and we together came board the plane and we came to China. Yeah.
That's so good because having
Yes.
someone that you know that's a
Exactly. I
friend
think
in your lab.
exactly. Yeah. I think that was like a big plus point for me for
Mm,
adjusting because we already knew
mm.
and we are moving to a new country and our labs were like one floor above. So his lab was on sixth floor, my lab was on fifth floor. So they we were close together. Yeah, even our rooms were together.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
in the
good.
dormitory. Yeah. So I think
Wow.
in that terms, like that we have each other's back. Yeah,
And I guess having another Pakistani person there is just
exactly,
nice in terms of like you can speak the language and also
exactly.
talk about home and not get so homesick, and food as well. Maybe you might share some food together. But then, Sam, so you still had people from IISc in the Doherty Institute, but maybe just not in the same lab, right? So do you
Mhm.
think that really helped as well, having people from IISc there, like one of our friends, Meg?
Yeah.
Shout out to Meg.
Yes. Yeah. No, definitely. At the very beginning, because I had no idea about the system, like the renting and the
Mm,
like
mm.
living here for one reason. So yeah, I first came in and went to Meg's apartment for a few
Oh
days.
yes, you did. Yep.
And to do that during pandemic is a big deal. You
Yeah.
wouldn't get people from outside in your apartment, right? So yeah, she definitely took like a huge risk. Thankfully, all of us were fine. Um, but yeah, for sure, definitely helped having her around at the very beginning, getting an idea of the city, how to apply for rental, like what to watch out for, and things like that. So, but I think the only plus side of arriving when a lot of people weren't coming into the country was getting an apartment like pretty close by to the
Mm,
university. So
mhm,
I lived alone most of my PhD time. And like, I think I really liked it because I need my own space to work.
mm,
I like having that space. So that was definitely a good thing. But yeah, Meg's support was invaluable. Like, to get used to this city and getting to know what I should look for around. But with respect to like sharing the same floor, I think I was doing a lot of work from home at the very beginning because part of my PhD was computational work. So I had the option to work from home for quite a bit. And other than that, we were not also sitting at the Doherty because a lot of the sitting space has shifted to a nearby building for my lab, where some of the other students were there in my cohort. So I ended up sitting there a few days in a week. So yeah, but definitely it's always good to have some sort of familiarity when you're arriving to a new country because otherwise it's quite lonely. It does get lonely at times. Yeah.
And did you find an Indian community or Pakistani community that you chat with, like other than your direct friends as well? Like, was there an association that you joined in the university?
I did not. To be fair, like some of the Indian friends that I made was through Meg.
Mm.
So we ended up like Bhavna and Praveen, like
Yeah.
that cohort anyways. So there were students from the university in other labs. Like one was an alumni from my own lab. So yeah, we ended up becoming friends and they were gonna stay long term in Australia. So it was good to have there. With respect to associations, no, I
Mm.
did not. Because I think one of my things in PhD was I'm not gonna get myself closed off in an association.
Right.
Is
Gotcha.
I wanted to meet new people from other places and grow my circle. If I, it's just my thinking, but I didn't want to just communicate in my own language or
Mm.
with my own people. I wanted to be open with that. So that was, I think, one of the reasons for not joining a community like that.
Yeah.
But definitely it depends from person to person. And it's one of the things where you do you. If you do feel homesick, 100% would recommend joining such communities. I know friends who have joined as well. So yeah.
So you formed your own community, which is the best, right?
Yes.
Yeah, which
Yes.
is amazing. And then I joined that community. So I have a lot of Indian friends,
No,
which is amazing.
You were
Yeah.
already there. You were already there. It's me who joined.
So what about you, Riaz? Did you join an association for Pakistanis or?
Uh, so for me, like, I mean, in the university when I arrived there, so overall in the it was a big university, but the international students were not many. I think I'm not quite sure, but probably less than 30, 20 to 30, like
Mm,
all in all, yeah.
people, not percent.
Yeah, people. Yeah, 20 to 30 international people, yes, students. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And few of them from Pakistan, definitely, like they were like 4 or 5 people, they were from Pakistan. So actually
Mm,
we were like the earlier like international students in that university. And I think at that time like a few years later, so the Chinese government started to like open up, and they wanted to boost their ranking, university ranking. So
mm,
they started to recruit many international students. So that's why they introduced like many other scholarship programs, like CAST was like Chinese Academy of Science Scholarship, and
right.
some others. Yeah. So but at that time, 2012 and 13, so in my like university, there were like very few students. Yeah.
Wow. Did you feel like isolated or made to feel foreign, or did you have any issues like that at all?
Not really. So basically, when I started my lab, so the international office also offered us like basic Chinese classes,
Mm, mm-hmm.
and I took like 1 or 2 classes, and then because I was skipping the lab and I was going to the class, and when my professor knew that I'm going to Chinese class, learning Chinese, and he said, why are you learning Chinese? So you don't need to
Why?
learn Chinese. Yeah. So you need to like do experiments. I mean, you stay in the lab and do experiments because
Produce
it's a waste
data.
of time. Yeah, exactly. He said that. So I remember exactly that he said it's so difficult for you to learn Chinese. So you're not gonna, get anything. So I think you don't waste time there.
Oh my gosh. But like then if you don't know, then how do you order food and like meet
Yeah, that
new
was
Chinese friends and how?
exactly. So that was my biggest challenge. Yeah, that was my biggest challenge because then we like I didn't go to learn Chinese. We are going outside, and at that time, we downloaded the translation software. So wherever I was going, so I had my phone with me and showing translation. Yes, exactly. But with passage
Wow.
of time, yeah, with passage of time, like I start to pick up the Chinese from
Mm.
surrounding environment, and that's how, like, I think within 3 to 4 years, after like spending 3 years, I was able to communicate in Chinese without going to any class.
Yes. But that is the best form of learning, right? Just be
Exactly.
immersed and not like book learning, but
Mm,
actually being in the environment. So that's great.
yes. Yes. So yeah, that was like biggest challenge. I would say that now I regret that I could have like gone to learn Chinese and maybe
Mm.
have spent like more time and could have been like more, you know, fluent in Chinese. Yeah, and I could have made some other like better adjustments in the lab and others, because also another thing like even in the university, so the students, they don't speak English. So
Mm,
even they are doing, they are doing masters and PhD. They don't speak English at all.
Mm.
Yeah, only like broken English. For example, like if you want to do I mean, ask some questions. So, for example, if I wanted to have some guidance from my copiers, from the lab mates, it was very hard for them to, teach me something. But
Mm.
luckily, so there was one guy, he was like a little bit better, and he taught me most of the techniques. And after that, I got learn myself.
Yeah, and especially with scientific lingo as well, right?
Exactly.
You're like,
Yeah.
how does that translate? Like, how does that work?
Yes.
But it's interesting to me because some universities, I think, like, say, Germany, for example, they
Uh-huh.
speak English, I think, in their classes, their master's classes. Is that right? I think I've heard that before in certain institutions somewhere that's
Uh-huh.
not like native English speaking, they teach in English as opposed to the local language. So it's interesting that in your institution it was kind of the opposite way. But I'm also assuming that the people in your lab are publishing in English, right?
Yes.
Yes. So
Yes.
how does that work? How does
So,
this work?
so that's always a mystery for me too,
Okay.
because we all doing we are like reading the literature in English,
Mhm.
and how they these guys are mostly people in the lab, so they are learning in English, but they couldn't translate into. So what I know that they are shy to speak it out. So for example, if they
Mm,
are reading, so they are good at reading, they are good at understanding the
mm,
literature, but when it comes to the speaking, so they are not good. So that's why, I mean, maybe they never practiced it, or they never tried to communicate, and that's why they always end up in communicating in Chinese, not in English.
right, right.
And also, like, all the terms, they have a Chinese term. I mean, all the English terms and scientific terminologies, mostly they have their Chinese name.
Right. So if it's like PCR, right, and you're like, I want to do this PCR, teach me how to do PCR. Is there another word for PCR or is this like Chinese
So yeah, so the
pronunciation? Yeah.
abbreviations, mostly they say PCR, but if
Okay.
you say polymerase chain
Yeah.
reaction, so I think definitely there's a Chinese word for it. Yeah.
Wow. That must have been really difficult for you. Like I can't
It
even
Yeah.
is.
imagine how. Oh, wow.
But
And it
So
must
I
be.
yes, I mean, to be fair, scientific writing is quite different to like spoken stuff as well.
Mm,
So maybe like they somehow got the expertise in writing,
could
but
be, could be.
yeah, maybe.
But their thesis is also in Chinese, actually. PhD thesis.
oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yes. So they have to write thesis in Chinese, not in English. Yeah. It's only the I mean, publication, and mostly the publication is done by, I mean, is written by the PI, not the students.
So you'll write, say, a paper maybe firstly in Chinese, like, and then they might translate it later and then work it with the PI, or do they?
I No. So I think they
No.
only provide the figures to the PI, only figures, and then PI, I mean, itself, I mean, formulate a draft, and then he will work on.
Okay.
So the writing is actually done by the PI in most
Exactly.
cases. That is so completely opposite to what, what we do.
Thousands of revisions every time.
That's crazy stuff. Yeah, kudos. Kudos for
Yeah.
you for making it out and doing a
Yes.
postdoc there as well. And also now that you're working for Vector Builder, it must be a bit different now because now that you're in industry, there might be more people that have had that English experience or there may be more international
Not
employees.
really. So
No?
not
Okay.
really here. So here comes the point that that's what I expected, because I thought like Guangzhou is an international city. So
Yeah.
there are few cities like I presume that they are international: Shanghai, Beijing, and Guangzhou. And I thought like okay, the people in Guangzhou probably, I mean, more, I mean, in terms of communication, more are flexible, and they could speak English, but it's not true. So even here, yeah. So even here, I'm having a difficulty in communication. Yeah.
Mm.
But like my Chinese now, I'm practicing my own Chinese, so I'm getting to it. Again, like for the daily life now, I don't have any difficulty. But like in the group, I mean, mostly in my meetings. So if I am presenting or if I am doing meetings, so I do in English, and there's someone like is always for example, my PI, my leader, he's communicating, he's translating to other people if there's something I
Mhm.
need to communicate with them.
Right. Okay. So this sounds like a lot. Sounds like
Yeah.
a lot. So if we move back to like the Australian side, say, what were some of your sort of culture shocks then on your side?
I think a couple of things that was very, very different to Riaz is we are not expected to work all the time or long hours. So definitely people in Australia value their work-life balance a lot. While the time they're in office, they will be totally locked in while working. It's like 8 a.m. to 4:30. You will find people all the time in the offices. So therefore, we do have a bit of flexibility around there on how we want to do. It's very much task focused. So as soon as you like set a deadline on track and figuring out like properly tracking that, you are given flexibility of when you want to work. Some days are unavoidable when you do have to stay for long experiments and things like that, and that's normal in a PhD, but definitely not too much of a high pressure. With respect to, I think, writing side, we have to do like it's an English speaking country, and back home also like it was English that we mainly did our work in. So that was not super different, but the only difference is that in any new culture, right, there are a lot of like lingos and slangs that they use within themselves. And that is something that you need to get used to and read the room while you're staying in a new environment. So initially, I think I did feel a bit of trouble with the accent because Australian accent is quite different to what we use. But definitely, like over time, I got used to listening that and interpreting what behind the lines mean, whether like while reading your emails or things like that, or you learn how to read like mannerisms and things like that. So the one thing I had to be like, be observant, be understanding of what people are saying versus what people are meaning. And that's there in every culture. It's obviously easier when you grew up with a certain culture, but as someone like you have to notice of how things are going in there and then identify how you would respond to a situation. So that's definitely one of the challenging aspects of being there. What else? Yeah, I think one of the things I would say is it would always help to have a higher diversity, like in a lab group with respect to students, because a lot of times international students tend to club together given they have a lot of shared experiences together. Like all of us are leaving homes and we're coming to a new country. It's all new. So there's a higher factor or relatability in there versus people who have basically like stayed same in the same honors and same PhD. A lot of them have continued in the same lab. So they have a lot more base there, or they know how to communicate more effectively in some areas. So that's definitely one of the challenges. And a lot of times that might also make you feel lonely if you are like say only a single international student in a lab. It's not that things have to go sour, it's just that sometimes there are things that you would not relate to and you don't have a lot of people to talk to in there, and that can get quite difficult. So I think in one of the labs I had a huge cohort of like students who started similar to me and from different countries as well, like somewhere from Malaysia, Pakistan, Bhutan. And we were also in the same boat of learning the new techniques. So we would group together and like teach each other, which was a very good way of making that bond within the cohort. And I think that's something looking back, I'm really thankful for is that I got a really nice PhD cohort who I could share my thoughts with, and we would help each other out. It's a very supportive group. So, um, yeah, that's pretty much I would say is how the experiences go. Definitely not as daunting as going and communicating in a different language outside with the society.
Yeah.
So, yeah, your groceries are pretty smooth, and ordering food is not a big challenge for sure.
For sure. And I think going back to reading between the lines, I'm Korean, right? And
Mhm.
Koreans tend to be very direct with what they are feeling and what they want to say. They just like spit it out.
Yeah, similar to
And you're
Indians.
kind of used to hearing that. And then, so I think maybe in certain other cultures, maybe including like Australia and New Zealand, where it's a little bit, yeah, you do kind of maybe have to beat around the bush. And so you have to read between the lines, and practicing that is kind of hard. I mean, at the age of like 20 something, right? You already fixed it into some kind of way of communication in your home country, and you have to lift that up and then go into a separate second mind frame. It's crazy that you have to do that. What do you think PIs or lab mates can do to help international students feel a little bit more welcome? And you talked about like relatability, right? Some things that you can't relate to. How can they make that a bit easier?
I don't think, to be honest, there is a very specific manual with that, because each person coming in is different and each person they're interacting with is different. So I think if I have to like just go by my own thoughts, it's just having like clear communication of and be understanding that this person might not have the same background as us. So just trying to make people comfortable. I mean, if I now move forward and like start thinking about making my own group, and these are some of the considerations I would take as a leader, is I'm getting new people from different backgrounds and different cultures, per se, and try to find out a way of how to communicate the best. Like, rather than putting more emphasis on mannerisms, I would try to get into what is this person exactly trying to mean out of this, and how do we work around that. So that's definitely one of the considerations which I think is very important while you're working in a group. And like, it's just being open in your mind, that, and be considerate that this person may not have the same thing as me or us. And at the end of the day, how do we elevate every single person in the group so that we as a group work together in the best way possible? Is, I think that should be the goal of any team in there. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's a really great point. And a couple of episodes ago, I did talk about leadership on this podcast. And I think one of the great ways that you can make sure everyone feels comfortable is, like what you said, catering towards every student that you have or member of the lab in their own way. So I think in certain cultures or systems, they might have one leader that has one way of communication, and everyone else has to adapt towards that communication and try to understand that. But what a good leader really is when they actually get to know the communication style of each person and what their goals are, and then catering towards it. That makes a good leader. So I think you make a really fantastic point. And of course, Riaz, you're starting your new lab. And as a leader, like what are the things that you might want to do to improve this sort of thing if you have a more international lab, say? We don't know yet, but maybe.
Yeah. So I would like to highlight some experiences I have had in Canada.
Yeah.
So that was like totally different than China.
Yes.
So in terms of that, I think I would like to follow the footsteps of my PI in Canada. So he was quite friendly. The first thing he did that even before like I was moving there, and they got connected me to with another Pakistani guy. He was there for like I think for 10 years there in Canada. So he was at the same place. So he said, okay, Riaz, this is guy Mustafa. So you're going to meet him. So you guys can interact and see how it works. So he will help you to adjusting. So I think that was very nice gesture from him, that he already knew that I'm from Pakistan. So he knew somehow like got new to another Pakistani guy, and we got connected. So and actually it helped me a lot. So when I moved there, so I met the guy, and now we are very good friends. Since then, so another thing that my PI did, that he was accommodating each person within their like cultural things, and slowly he was trying to introduce the French culture or Quebec culture. So basically, so I was doing my postdoc in Quebec is a French colony. Is a all people they speak French. So another thing, so there was another language barrier.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, but here I was like so lucky that all people in like Quebec, they also speak English, so they are
Mm.
bilingual. So there was
Mhm.
no difficulty at all for me to communicate in in English. So that was like a good point. But before I didn't knew that before moving there, so I didn't know that in Canada this also speak French. So I thought
Okay.
it's only English. Yeah,
Very
Okay.
French heavy.
yeah.
Right. And so you literally arrived and you're like, oh, well, there's another language that I might have to learn.
Yes, exactly.
No one told you. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and in fact, like there, my PI, he encouraged me that okay, you should learn French. Yeah, and he was like
Mm.
asking me to take classes and go to the classes. And again, so I went there in COVID time. So I moved there in 2020. So that was like a very, again, isolated point, isolated time zone. So, but again, so I took some classes online and it helped me. Yeah. So later on here, like I was just learning by myself, like on
Mm.
the Lingo lab, but I
Yeah.
couldn't feel like that. So I couldn't feel like that French is important for like communication. So I thought, okay, because all people they speak English, and even in
Mm.
the lab outside, so there's no point to put some extra time to learning language. So I didn't. So I was like doing my experiments in the lab most of the time. Yeah.
Mm,
So
mm, mm.
yeah, so I was making a point that to be a leader, I think what he did, he was accommodating everyone within their specific culture and language and everything, and introducing uh, then introducing his own like flair of maybe new things that we for example Quebec culture or French culture, and we were liking it. So we were having like every month. I think there was some birthday party. So our lab was expanding. So
Mm.
each month someone has a birthday.
Birthday.
Exactly. So he was bringing in the cakes, and we were like celebrating it and having a chat. And I think there was no gap of like a student and a teacher there. I
Mm.
mean, so none of like our lab mates they were feeling that he's a teacher, so he was kind of a friend. So I think
Mm.
mostly that's how it works in Western culture probably. So here in China is a bit different, that you have a hierarchy level, and you need to call your PI like boss or something. So we were calling our PI by their nicknames. So that's quite different. So mostly if you have if you don't have any communication gap between the two people, that's how you can like build a relationship, and that's how you can I mean get more from the person in terms of productivity.
That's a really good point, not
Yeah,
having that gap. So I think once you feel that that barrier is lowered, you can confidently talk about your issues if you
exactly.
do have that sense of trust that they're going to be receptive and understanding if you do speak out. But if you do put like a hierarchy to it, then
Mm,
it becomes like any issues you have, you can't talk to them about and nothing gets
exactly.
fixed, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and my PI he knows my like all the personal life, like about my marriage life and all other
Oh.
things. So he even in my colleagues, so they having like some affairs. I mean, they have having some gulf relationship. So he was advising them that okay,
Oh,
you should do this and this and do this.
wow.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like that
exactly.
level of personal
Exactly. That
interaction.
was like
Wow.
my personal attraction. So I
But like
think I would like to do kind of similar thing to make other person or make my students feel comfortable, so they can come up with me, I mean come to me and talk anything like without any hesitation.
yeah, that's really good. I'm looking forward to your lab group and how they interact with you. But yeah, it's an interesting thing because they obviously need to make time in their busy schedule to look
Exactly.
after people, like to get to know somebody to that level. You need to put in the effort. And are you
Exactly.
talking about your relationships and your personal affairs during lab meeting or one-to-one meetings or just in passing? Like when do you make that connection?
Anytime, like even in the lab meetings or mostly in the one-to-one meetings. But like for example, yeah, again, like for example, we are having a small party, birthday party, or if somebody published a paper, so he will
Mm.
bring up the cake, and then we will celebrate it, and then we will talk about these things. Yeah.
Yeah. So birthday party is very important. Very
Yes,
important for building rapport. And Sam, what about you? Did you have many of those gatherings? Because I know you were in a huge lab, right? Like humongous lab that it's hard to get everyone in a room together.
Yeah.
So how did celebrations occur in your lab?
Okay, I don't think we did like for every member. That was never the case because because it was such a huge lab, it was like divided into research units.
Mm.
So that was quite different to mainly our projects was being handled by like the postdocs. So the lab head, they had to be like super busy moving around and securing a lot of like international collaborations and things. So yeah, we did not have that much of a culture of meeting like every month and celebrating things like that. We did ourselves as our friends, like especially joining cohorts. If like somebody got confirmed during their PhD, we would go out and like have a meal together or like do sometimes within a few months, like a monthly catch up in a cafe, try out some new drinks and things like that. So that was there within our group. Definitely there was the annual lab party that would happen during Christmas. But again, because it's such a huge group, it's again like the students forming their own little group in one
Yeah.
corner with like the PIs forming, sitting with the senior postdocs and lab
Mm.
heads. So that was quite different with respect to that. But yeah, I think once in a while, what we did was even in the same floor as we were in, or if we joined in the same year of PhD, we did have like a initial group that we formed, especially like focusing on the internationals because all of us were coming from outside. So we sort of wanted to be there for each other. And we had our own group. We would like go out on birthdays or do a big thing once in a while. So it's get a cake, celebrate together, even if it's the tea room and everything. So that was there. I think over the years, it sort of fizzled out as people got more and more busy with their work. So we ended up breaking into smaller units. But even now, even within those smaller units, like once we broke up into groups, we still stayed connected. But the smaller units, they were also very tight. Like I have a group of couple of other friends who joined around the same time as me and we submitted together. So after that, we had been catching up and celebrating every time our thesis was submitted or oration was done and things like that. So that's how we sort of took charge of getting connected between our cohort.
Right. So if that like that environment of friendliness and community doesn't happen within the group, you form your own small units that you're tight with and you have that connection that way, which is a really handy tip. One thing I did want to ask both of you is that you didn't get to physically meet your lab group or your PI before you moved to, I'm guessing, China, Australia, but also maybe at Canada as well. You didn't meet your PI before you actually
No,
went
no. So I met him. I met him. Yeah. Yeah.
at a conference or
Yeah. At a
different meeting.
conference. Yeah. So yeah.
Perfect.
At a conference. Yeah.
So then how do you know whether you're going to have a good PhD life? Because, you know, you're going to spend like 4 or 5 years like every day with these people and you just don't know who they are like. So if you can give any tips for new students, how to figure out whether they gel with the supervisor or how to find a good supervisor in the first place, like maybe that would be worth sharing.
Yeah, so one thing that I always think about is good and bad is a very relative term. What may be good for me may not be good for someone else, and what might be good for someone else may not be good for me. So it's always a bit of a gamble, to be honest, and very different to the US system where they do get like a rotation system for the labs. They spend like 3 months going around 3 labs and then get to choose. It's quite different for the UK and Australia, I think, where you do not get to meet them. For me personally, yeah, sorry to say.
Yes, no, I think we should actually talk about the system as well then. Maybe if you could please go over what the PhD system is like in Australia and also China, that would be fantastic.
Okay, so anyways, just that's one of the differences. But for the PhD system here, the way my application went through is like I first spoke to a PI. If they were okay with taking me on, we try to figure out what the scholarship system will be. One thing is very important, especially as an international student. It's always good to have a scholarship, because with the rising costs everywhere, it's going to be hard without a scholarship. So always have that support with you. That's, even if you have to wait for a few years before you get a scholarship, I would definitely recommend getting one for that moving abroad, because there are costs which you do not anticipate beforehand. Like even going to the doctor, you do not get the same level of support that the citizens get in another country. So it's always going to be a bit more expensive for you. So that's one scholarship. Yeah, I think that's very different to the US system, where the US system is like you apply to a university directly sometimes. And then if the university goes through your application and says you're deemed fit, you join the PhD course. You do not have a lab from beforehand. And that's quite different with Australia. So Australia, I feel like it's more closer to the UK system. I'll come back to your first question now, which is like, how do
Sorry.
you? So again, good and bad, very subjective. You never know what challenges you're gonna face. Some you might anticipate, some you might even come as a surprise. And one thing as a PhD student is always important is adaptability. Whether your experiment's not working or whether you're facing some new challenge, do not linger on things that do not work. Try to find a move forward. Sometimes you even need to be letting go of things. I think during our PhD, we get very attached to the things we do, because you're basically spending a few years of your life on a single thing. You have tunnel vision during that time. So your emotions are high. You get very attached to things. Sometimes you need to let go of that attachment for a clearer picture of what comes ahead in front of you. So that's definitely an advice for the candidates. With respect to getting a good group, I think one thing always helps is going through the lab websites. If there isn't one, that is a bit of a red flag for me now. I feel like going back, that's something that I would do differently. Is the lab group website updated? Has there been students at the same time who have been like internationals in the same group? Has there been a diversity in there? If possible, maybe talk to people who were there in the lab previously but have left. So one thing I think which was very different after coming to Australia was approaching people. Some ways here things are very open. So if you reach out with an email to someone, in most cases, they would actually respond to you and try to help you. So, and I've heard this from one of my mentors, like beyond my PhD, is if you do not ask, you do not get. So do not be shy in asking for help. Worst case scenario, you already do not have the help. But in the best case scenario, you might actually get some extra support. So that's another thing as well. So yeah, going through the lab website, talking to as many people either in present in the group or people who have left the group of how their experiences has been, and also look at like the project history and the grant history, the papers that come out of the lab. So what has their research output been in the past 5 years? So do you want to go into an established lab or do you want to go into a new lab? A new lab, much like startups, I feel like you have to fill in a lot of different roles, a lot of different shoes. So there will be more work pressure. In an established lab, the PI might have less time for you. So in there, you have to have a lot of good communication with your lab members to help you out if you are feeling challenged in certain aspects. So yeah, definitely that. And what else? I think that's most of the points that I was thinking of. So yeah, that's sort of my advice to
Oh,
anyone
those are
who's like
great
that.
points.
Yeah.
Great points. Great points. Okay, Riaz, let's go.
Yeah. So I think I will agree on all points Sam made, and I will add to it a little bit. It depends on you. For example, if you're looking for a PhD or postdoc. So, for example, if you're looking for a PhD, now it depends on you that how good your master's is. For example, are you comfortable enough that you can get a position in a good lab, in good university or in a good lab? Then you can play around like all those points that you need to see their lab website and other things, those small points. But if your master's degree, I mean, and if your grades are not good enough and you just want to land up, position in abroad, and then you have to think another way. Then because you're looking for an opportunity again, then you can set some rules that okay, I'm not going to end up like some very bad lab that it doesn't have produce any paper, or with, for example, productivity of the lab is very poor. So on those threshold, I think you can set, and then you can think of okay, what is good for me and what is not good. But again, like now you can judge yourself like that, okay, am I at that level that I'm going to get a good lab or not? Because again, for example, if I'm a PI, so first thing I will see, okay, master students coming to me for a PhD, so how good he is, because I also need to choose him, right? So same way, for example, the other PI, they will say, they will look at the profile and CV of that one. Then I have to say, for example, if my lab is established and it's big lab, then it's my say. Other way around, for example, if I am just beginning and I need some students, and then maybe I will play around, okay, I need some people to work with me and just get the lab going, and then I will like a compromise on small things. So I think we need to consider these points too, as well.
Absolutely. Those are really great points too. And what I will add is that there is a way to meet the group prior to joining. That's what I did for my PhD. So I went
Okay,
for an interview. I went to Queensland and I also went to Monash. Actually, no, Melbourne Uni at the time. So 2 cities, and I actually went to go visit the lab and the PI. We had coffee or we had a chat, and that made me feel a little bit more confident about where I was going. And I know this isn't the option for many people because it does cost money and it does cost a bit of time. I remember my thesis for my honors was due the same week, and I was like, oh my gosh, should I be going or not? And I was really anxious, but I'm really glad that I did. And also, if your PI is very woke, they'll let you talk to the PhD students alone without them being present, so they can give you a bit of an honest opinion as much as possible. The second thing I want to say is that if you're in a lab, well, if you're looking for a lab, look at the lab composition. Is it top heavy or bottom heavy? You don't want a lab that has too many postdocs and no PhD students. If you're the only PhD student, it's going to be a little bit tougher, is what kind of how I felt being in a kind of newish lab. Our lab moved to a new institution, and so I was the only PhD student for a while in the lab. So you then go ahead and make your own friends outside of the lab. But for some people, it's hard to do that sometimes, right? The opposite is when you have no postdocs and you only have PhD students. Then everybody's in the same boat where they're just failing. They're just scrambling to get experiments done and just having to ask like other postdocs from other labs to teach you techniques because like everyone's just like, what's going on? So those are the 2 things I want to add. But I think across the board, those points that you both made are amazing.
I think I'll just add a quick little point over here is also choosing the project that you'll be working on. Has it been an
Yes.
established project or is it a new project? In my PhD, I was the first one to start working on the new project. The overall question was really vague when I started working. And in such a project, sometimes the data you generate, it can be a bit of a hit and miss. And not everything, you're basically refining the main research question. So not a lot of times you'll get very good outputs out of that PhD with respect to publications. So I think the general consensus is as PhD students, we do beat ourselves up over how many papers did we get during our PhD. It is a mix of a lot of different factors. So I do not want any students to beat themselves up over, oh, I did not get any papers during PhD or I just got only one. I mean, hey, you did the best you could do in that situation. So it's okay. As long as you're
Mm.
learning new techniques, you have grown from when you started, I think that counts itself as a very good success in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really great way to think about it. But I know in certain PhD programs you have to publish before you
Mhm.
graduate. And or it's a personal preference on the PI that your PhD student needs to publish, otherwise they're not going to. I'm going to let them graduate. So that's what I've heard also. So I think it also depends. But at least in our institute, we're very fortunate that no one really needed to publish for their PhDs. Like it's great if you did, and many people did, but it wasn't a requirement for you to pass the degree. So how was it like for you, Ria?
Yeah, so I want to add some points, I mean, about the system actually. I missed it, like
Yes.
exactly. So the China PhD system is like you get into masters and then PI can let you to do the PhD at the same time, like masters leading to PhD. Yeah, so you don't have to, get the master degree and then reapply again. So it's like a connected. You can get the masters and PhD together. So after bachelor. So this, I think, a similar thing is in Canada also. But there you have a choice that you get the master degree also, and then
Mm.
you can apply to PhD and then get the PhD degree. But what I like in Canada is that many undergrad students, so they are having undergrad and also master students. So they are having the internship hours in their like terms. For example, if you are choosing a course, instead of choosing a course, you can choose a 60 hours internship to any lab. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing like I like the best there. So for example, many internees they were coming to our lab. So my PA was like giving the opportunity those students, and later those undergrad they can select the PI. That
Mm.
okay, they want to move to for the master's degree with the same PI, or they want to do PhD with the same PI. So that's how you can know your PI is best or not. How's the lab is going, because you have opportunity to work there for like 1 or 2 months or 3 months. So that's a very good way to
Mhm.
to like set the basis for your future PhD supervisor.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I remember just
Yeah.
now that we also used to have an internship program, but it's only for certain people. And you can also do like a 10-week placement over summer.
Mhm.
So we used to say it's a summer studentship. So you get a bit of a scholarship and then you stay for the summer. And then I remember most of my friends who did that program stayed on to do their honors and PhD in the same lab. So that makes total sense. That's what happened for them.
Exactly.
They were like, 10-week program to an honors or a master's to a
Yes.
PhD, and then they stay for postdoc. So they were there for like 10 years. but
Exactly.
yeah, it does happen, doesn't it? And sometimes, though, when international PhD students come, um, they can feel a little bit behind because they're starting a new project from scratch from the PhD, right? Whereas their peers might have been in that same lab for years. So they would have had like maybe a paper or two already for that exact same project, and it's a continuation of their master's or honors or a third year project. So it can feel like you have to start from ground zero. But don't be upset about that. Everyone has their time, and you're starting a new exciting project, and you should be very happy and challenged by that. So yeah, that's what I want to say. And so I think one thing that we could maybe finish off with is, if you could give you yourself, master student Sam and Riaz, a piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh,
Like looking back after you've had this journey, now you're at the end of that or been past that point, what would you have told that person that you were like 10 years ago or 5 years ago?
I would tell myself to be a bit more savvy, I think, to be honest. Learn a bit more about the cultures and maybe go for opportunities where I get to experience the lab first rather than diving right into the PhD project. That definitely is one of the good things in that. But to be fair, looking back after these 4 years, I feel like I have grown a lot. I have learned a lot of new different things. So, and I feel like whatever I have learned is going to help me going forward. So sometimes if you are shocked, that's not a bad thing. that helps you get more prepared. And maybe looking back, I'll take the same decision or not. I don't know. But we have come all this far. So it's only looking forward from now on is what I always tell myself. Like, move, keep going ahead. Whatever comes, keep going ahead. Challenges will come. It comes in every person's life. It's never the same for everyone. So just do what you have to do, learn from it, move forward.
Thanks, Sam. What about you, Raz?
Yeah, for me, I would say that it depends on you that if you want to be in comfortable zone, just like you mentioned that mostly at the start of the talk that because people are staying in the same lab for long period, and they one reason could be that it's a comfortable zone. You know like people, you know the families there, and you have friends and everything. So it depends on you that if you want to be in comfortable zone and you can play safe, but if you want to move ahead from other people, I would say challenge yourself at all levels. Yeah, in terms of like making connections, you talk to people. In terms of like learning, you learn something which is not in your own, subject area. I think that's the very great point that when you learn something out of way from different things. I mean, from, for example, my subject is like cell biology. So if I'm learning something in mathematics or physics or chemistry, you will get some point, you will get some like clues which will help you in your subjects. Yeah.
Okay.
So I will say that challenge yourself. For example, now I never learned bioinformatics, but now I'm trying to learn it and I see that my life is getting easier and easier. So because I challenge myself, even passing those things, I mean, for a long time that I could have like asked someone else that, okay, this is the data, please analyze it for me. But I said, okay, let's try. I have a time, I have a like resources. So let's see how I can do it or not. So I think now I feel like that, okay, my life is get easier, but because I challenge myself. So again, my advice is that at all points, if you want to move ahead from other peers, challenge yourself.
That's a great point. And I think a lot of PhD students are there and doing a PhD because they want to improve themselves and challenge themselves and explore
Yeah,
something they haven't explored before. So, yeah, it
exactly.
makes total sense to apply it into other aspects of their lives as well by learning new techniques and all. So, just to summarize, I just want to say thank you so much both for coming on this 1.5 hour podcast. It was a long time. I wish we could keep talking for ages and a lot more, but I think we should cut it here. But to our listeners, if you're thinking about doing a PhD overseas or if you're already there, I just want to say that you're doing a great job. And I do think that, like what Riaz and Sam said, that you should challenge yourself if you can. And it is very admirable to do so because not everybody wants that challenge. And make sure you have a community, make sure you have people that you're speaking to, make sure you connect with your family back home as well. If you do feel like you're struggling, do reach out to people, do reach out to us or whoever that are around you or even on the internet. There are a lot of forums out there as well if you want to just do an anonymous rant like on Reddit, and you're not alone and you're carrying a bit more than what people are carrying if they were a domestic student. Yeah, take courage and we'll talk to you on the next episode. Bye.
Okay, bye bye. Thank you.